Good evening. Welcome to this special webinar that will highlight senior living options in Ecuador and changes that are underway to make aging in our country a viable option. Today's presenters are Edwin Urresta. Edwin has 35 years experience as an international consultant in Latin America and Southeast Asia. Edwin holds various law degrees, including a doctorate in jurisprudence and a master's in linguistics. He is currently the CEO of Club Lomas, a company that has developed a pilot assisted living facility in the town of Cotacachi, with the aim of leading options of wellness and quality longevity. Dr. Maite Dupreu is a family physician working out of her clinic, Circulo Medica Vital in Cuenca. Dr. Maite studied medicine in Belgium, immigrated to Ecuador in 2015, and set up her private practice in the city of Cuenca in 2016. Her focus is caring for the elderly, and in particular, members of the retired expat community. Dr. Ana Cecilia Caballo was born in Ecuador. She returned to her hometown, Cuenca, after studying family medicine in Barcelona, Spain. Dr. Ana Cecilia has been practicing medicine since 2016, and most recently, she opened the Circulo Medical Vital practice with Dr. Dupreu. Since completing her medical study, she has completed various courses in hospital at home, medicine to care for Cuencanos and expats in Cuenca. We know that your time is very limited and you have very busy life, so we will try to keep this presentation to 1 hour in length. If you have a general question, please send it to me through the link below, and we will attempt to get to as many questions as possible. If we are unable to respond during the presentation, we will contact you or address your issue in a future webinar. My name is Joanne Jackson, and I live in Ecuador. Now we'll just go over the agenda. Okay, so first of all, we're going to speak about the international senior living industry and the context in Ecuador, and the changes and needs that come with aging and how to address them. The third topic will be, is it cost effective to live at home? What are the other options? In particular, the Club Lomas in Cotacachi as being a new option here in Ecuador. And finally, we'll have some comments from the moderators, and we ask that you complete a short survey for us at the end of the whole presentation. Okay, so now I hand you over to Dr. Edwin Urresta.
Thank you very much, Joanne. Good evening with everyone. Thank you for your time. If you allow me, I would just like to send a very brief message in Spanish for nationals that may be following. Buenas noches, señoras y señores. Quiero agradecerles a nombre del Club Lomas y del grupo que nos acompaña hoy para tener una charla sobre temas del envejecimiento y las necesidades que aquel presenta. Hoy vamos a hacer esta presentación específicamente en el idioma inglés, dado que el sector que ha solicitado participar habla ese idioma. Sin embargo, para los hispanohablantes vamos a tener una presentación similar en corto tiempo y se les comunicará oportunamente. Muchas gracias. Thank you. I would like to start off speaking a little bit about the international senior living industry and what the context in Ecuador is. I am sure you all know that abroad, especially in North America and in Europe, the senior living industry has developed over more than 60 years. Consequently, the experience that those countries have regarding the services, products, and needs of older adults is quite extensive. The industry is something that has developed many different variety of products. There are many different types of environments that seek to make senior living comfortable and to enhance people's lives towards the end of the life. However, that evolution has meant that there has been a lot of changes recently. People have had new trends, new preferences, and the senior living industry abroad, internationally, really has quite a lot of different products to offer. However, it does have its drawbacks. Clearly, in those countries, there are many problems with staff shortages, especially the high costs that it entails to run a facility for assisted living, for home care, for long-term care, and so forth. So the international industry, while it has been very successful in addressing the issue, it has become very costly. And that means that many people do not have the economic possibility of accessing such services. Being that the situation, I would like to mention the situation in Ecuador. Ecuador, as in most of South Latin America, uh, have a very different reality. I think that while the developed countries have 60 years of experience, that is due because the family structure changed a lot long before it has in Latin America. Families initially were together, they worked together, most people were at home, and they could look after the elderly. But with modernization, with commerce, with industry, families became very busy, and consequently, the structure changed, and the older adults could no longer be uh, overseen by the other family members. The situation in Ecuador, for example, has been until relatively recent the same thing. Families traditionally have felt that it's their duty to look after the elder, to take care of them, but this reality has also changed. Now everyone is busy working, the children are studying, and quite frankly, the adults are pretty much on their own. This hence has caused a new need for this type of product and service. What we have basically in Ecuador still today is traditional old style asilos. Frankly, that has been a very negative term in Ecuador, and that is a mentality that needs to change. People think of asilos as places where you go and leave the elderly for their final years. And it's not pleasant places. It's not places where they can enjoy life, where they can have an active life. The buildings are not purpose built. In most cases, it's just simple houses that have been adapted to accommodate 8 to 10 persons, which is relatively small. So to date, what we have is basically services at a very basic level, small communities for 8 to 10 people, and nothing like that which we find in the international industry. Consequently, it's important to say that in Ecuador, we need to think of the new possibilities, new options, create the senior living industry as a modern option for people, both Ecuadorians and expats who live here. To date, there are approximately 78 so-called assisted living facilities in Ecuador. But as I said, they basically are small houses with basic services, looking at nursing services mostly, and that is not what we really need. I think we need to look towards the new models. And in this sense, Club Lomas, which is hosting tonight's webinar, and which we'll present later, is one of the projects that is seeking to ask our fellow citizens to think of new ways to develop an industry in the whole country where we can have modern services, where everything is all inclusive, and where people can have a comfortable and decent lifestyle. In that sense, we hope that today we can initiate this dialogue through a series of upcoming webinars And when we can consider moving away from those old style nursing homes where we don't look at senior living as charity and where people can actually have very good options. We need to develop home care options which are affordable and can be accessed by more people, assisted living with proper services at a reasonable price, and of course to promote policy changes in the country. We need the society to talk of this topic and to understand that we need to care for our older persons, both, again, Ecuadorians and those expats that have become a part of our community. In that sense, we hope that the conversation that will take place tonight will open doors for us to continue finding partnerships, ways in which we can together train staff, where we can speak with entrepreneurs and people who are interested in providing quality service for the different levels of needs and for different socioeconomic realities. Clearly, starting and kicking off this industry has entailed a great investment, a lot of studies, a lot of staff being trained. Therefore, our first pilot project, which we'll mention later on, of course, is meant for a certain segment of the society, and we hope that over time there will be other options for more people as well. Thank you. With that, I basically have mentioned what we feel is the situation in Ecuador. And back to you, Joanne. Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Ana Cecilia and Dr. Edwin, so we can discuss about some of the changes that are coming forth, starting with emotional well-being and social interaction.
Good evening to everybody. I want to thank you all for being here and participating in this webinar. I'm sure much more to come. This is just the beginning of a project and of information that we want to share with you all. Yeah. Let me introduce us again. We are the two doctors of Círculo Médico Vital situated in Cuenca. We're two family physicians here, and our main patient population, of course, are the elderly. That's why it's a subject that really draws to us, that affects us, because we are constantly facing the facts of aging, yeah, and how we can help people in that process, yeah. So because demographics are changing, yeah, we've seen it already in most Western countries. We've seen it in Europe and the US, Canada. People are aging and demographics are changing because less people decide to have kids, yeah, or instead of having 7 or 8 kids, we only have 1 or 2 or none. So what happens with the people who get older and don't have the family support, yeah? So these are all things that we have to think about to help our patients and the persons out, yeah? So I want to share first a couple of key facts, yeah? Key facts that are recently, for 2024, a couple of numbers that came out on demographics, a little bit on the aging population. And actually all countries now face major challenges to ensure that their health and social systems have to be ready to make the most of this demographic shifts, yeah? Some countries, like Edwin was saying, have been working on it for over 60 years. Others are just in the baby steps, yeah? So the idea is that we could work and learn from each other, yeah? The estimate is that in 2050, 80% of older people will be living in low and middle income countries. So we have to look at cost affordable services as well, yeah? The pace as well of population aging is much faster than in the past as well. So we have to think quick and we have to act quick. And in 2020, the number of people aged over 60 years and older outnumbered children already younger than 5 years. So that shows us immediately that demographics are changing. And the estimate is that between 2015 and 2050, the proportion of world population over 60 years will be nearly double, from 12% to 22%. So it's a group of, or a demographic group that we have to think about, and we have to look for their best interests and how we can age and how we can preserve as well longevity. Yeah, because that's what we're looking for. Longevity is not being old or being 100 years old or 105 years old. It's aging gracefully in a way, and being 80, 90, 100 or 100 years old, but in good conditions, in optimum conditions. Yeah. So what comes to mind sometimes by hearing the word elderly or an older person? Yeah, what comes to mind? Well, in a way, there is, in my opinion, there is actually no typical older person. Some 80 years old have physical and mental capacities like a 40 or 50-year-old. Yeah. But some 50-year-olds or 60-year-olds have physical and mental capacity as an 80-year-old. So everybody ages their way. Everybody ages in their time. Some do it gracefully, some do it in great condition, some suffer. Yeah. All depends, of course, on different challenges they face in during their life. Yeah. So there are a couple of challenges that we, of course, need to face. We can divide the challenges a little bit in, for example, health challenges, social and emotional challenges, but also an important one is financial challenges when we get older. Yeah. So the health challenges, well, that depends a little bit on physical decline as well. There is getting older, of course, according to genetics, according to workload, according to stress load, that all has an impact on your physical decline. And when there is a physical decline, there might be reduced mobility, strength, and endurance, which of course have impact on their daily life. Then there is chronic diseases. Yeah, lots of people starting at the age of 50 more or less start having high blood pressure, start having diabetes, thyroid issues, arthritis issues. These are all diseases or chronic issues that have impact on their lives as well and can form challenges for dealing with the elderly or aging population. Then we have sensory changes, which also have a great impact on their lives. For example, we have hearing loss. Yeah. People don't go out anymore because they can't hear well. They don't know what they're saying, what the neighbor is saying, or people are talking in between each other and they can't follow conversation. It's hard for them to interact. So they decide not to go out anymore, which then of course causes loneliness. Yeah. But it's not only hearing loss. It can be sometimes vision changes. Yeah. People not see anymore. They don't feel safe enough to go out. Or then all of that can actually cause vision, hearing loss, can even cause impact on communication. Yeah. So even going, for example, to the grocery shops can be a challenge because they don't know how to communicate well, because they don't see it well. They don't know if they're going to pay well or if they're going to get the right stuff. So they can all have a big impact on their daily activity. Yeah. And then, of course, a very important one as well is cognitive decline. Yeah. A large group, unfortunately, start having cognitive decline about the age of 70. And like memory loss, difficulties with problem solving. Alzheimer is becoming more frequent as well, which people who are alone or who don't have any family, that can create quite a lot of stress for these people to do daily life activities, or they don't even realize that they're not capable of doing these daily life activities, but can have a huge impact on their not only on their mental health, but of course on their physical health. Yeah, they don't eat anymore. They don't wash anymore. They don't go out. They don't have anything in the house. The house is filled with mold. These are things that they don't see, they don't notice, but can cause quite a lot of health challenges. Yeah. And then, of course, we have also mental health challenges. A lot of people, when they get older, they go in different stages of life. For example, you've always used to be a good job, yeah? You've always worked for a good company, being a part of a community, a working community, and all of a sudden we retire, yeah? You used to have a 10-hour job a day, and then you retire and everything stops. That is a huge new step in life, yeah? Rediscovering one another, yeah? For some, that can cause a huge mental challenge and can lead to depression, anxiety, yeah? Because it's a whole new beginning where they are lost, yeah? Luckily, there is a society that usually offers a lot of activities like art, book clubs, all these kind of things, but people don't always know about it, yeah? So helping that can help them learn to be a retired person, learn to be aging, to enjoy that stage of life, because it can be a beautiful stage of life as well if we let us get into that stage of life, yeah? If we accept it, an acceptance of aging, because I see a lot of, embrace it, you know? I see a lot in my patients sometimes that they don't actually embrace it and they're depressed, yeah? Instead of letting go and saying, well, this is a new stage in life and I'm going to make the best of it. And it's a new journey. It's like being an adolescent again as well. Yeah, you don't know, it's a whole new world going open, or going for the first time you go for a job, adjusting to a new job, a new rhythm. Well, it's the same. Yeah, we have different chapters in our life and we have to embrace it and learn. It's a learning curve. I always think that we learn since we're born to when we die, because even dying is a learning curve as well. We never know what we're going to expect. Yeah. We were never prepared for something like that. Yeah. So life is a continuous challenge. Life is a continuous learning program. And it's good to have people who are there who can guide you. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to change a little bit now in Ecuador too. We want to create a system where we can guide people through these different stages of life. Yeah. So there's not only health changes or challenges. I mean, there's also social and emotional challenges that we face once we get older. Yeah. For example, social isolation, which is a very important one that creates loneliness again. Yeah. Social isolation can be due, like I already mentioned, because of mobility limitations, because of physical decline. It could also be because we move to other countries. Yeah, we retire to, for example, to Ecuador. We're from the United States, Canada, Europe. Yeah, any expat that comes to Ecuador comes here usually alone or with their spouse. Not always, but some come with their spouse, but they left behind kids, they left behind friends, they left behind a whole community, yeah? And then they come here to retire, but although they come here with a purpose, it can sometimes lead to social isolation. Or as well, loss of loved ones, yeah? When you get older, you lose people along the road. You can lose your spouse, your friends, family, yeah, and all of a sudden we're alone and we're at loss, yeah. So and isolation leads to loneliness, and loneliness leads to health problems again. So it's a vicious circle, yeah. Also, the social and emotional challenges can include loss of purpose, like I've already mentioned. Retirement is one of a big one that I see here. Yeah, people just recently retired and they don't know what to do. They forgot how to mingle. They forgot how to interact because they're used to going from family work. Yeah, but there's a whole other community out there, but they're not used to or they don't know how to get in that community. So it's important that we can help and guide people with that. Yeah, find a purpose again, find a new purpose. Then also adapting to changes. Yeah, we need to learn to adapt. Like I mentioned, life is a continuous challenge. Yeah. We don't control the future. We never know what will come. We don't know how we will age. We can perhaps help age more gracefully or more healthier by having a healthy lifestyle. But we will never, like sometimes people want to have the ball where we look inside and see, okay, this is you in 10 or 20 years. Well, there's a lots of factors that are important that we need to take into consideration to see how we can age in better ways. Yeah. So adapting to change is an important one as well, of course, because sometimes because of an accident, we can be in a wheelchair. Yeah, but who knows? Who knew that? Yeah. So, but that can cause a huge adaptation in life and can cause also difficulties with aging. Yeah. And then last but not least, we also have some financial challenges. Usually when we retire, most cases our income is reduced. Yeah. We go to a nice, good salary to suddenly perhaps half or less, or we put on Social Security. And of course, sometimes that might not be sufficient to cover just plain simple living expenses. That can lead to financial instability, that can lead to emotional distress, to mental health disorder. It can lead to a whole bunch of stuff. And at the end, it's just money, you would say. But it is important that we take that into consideration into the aging community, that financial stress can be an important factor. So it's important that we provide facilities or support to these people that are affordable. Yeah. Because you don't, as a retired person, like here in Ecuador, if you have not been affiliated, for example, with ISS, and you've always worked on your own, you never had any apportations at ISS, you suddenly stop working, there is no income. Yeah. So how we deal with these people who also need care, who also need help with aging, and sometimes might need to get in facilities to have a more supporting care, but they don't have an income, a fixed income, to put it that way. So these are all challenges, especially here in Ecuador, that we have to face. Yeah. There is a wide demographic, not demographic, but class. How would you say that in English? We have different
income levels.
Yeah, there are different income levels that we face. So we have to think about them all. Yeah. And see how we can offer services for everybody.
Yeah. And the lack of family support that we spoke about.
Yeah. Sometimes the family members are living abroad, for example. I think 10, 20 years ago, it was the American dream that everybody had to go outside Ecuador to be happy and earn lots of money. I've heard that from people here. So a lot of them went to study in different countries and left Ecuador, but then they met somebody there and they married in and they have a family there, and parents are kept alone here. But they're facing, of course, all the challenges that we are facing when we get older. Yeah. Then, of course, within the functional instability, we have also important healthcare costs. Yeah. When we have, especially thinking about chronic conditions. Yeah. You can age and not have any, but people who age and at the age of 60 already have diabetes, have high blood pressure, have had a stent placed in. These are all, of course, costs that we don't calculate immediately, but some people here, for example, in Ecuador, if you're not having any insurance, I have people who pay over $200 a month just in medication at their age of 65 or 70. Yeah. So getting older involves also having more healthcare costs. Yeah. Healthcare costs that can add up quite a bit over the stage of life. Yeah. Then another point that perhaps another challenge that I think might be important too is especially with aging, something I've already mentioned is depth. Yeah. Dying is part of living, I always say, yeah, because you are born and you die, and we live in between. So death is definitely part of aging as well. And I think end of life planning should be also part of topics that we should address when we talk about aging. Yeah. In some countries, we have even assistant death, which here, of course, I think now is more or less legal. But when we face these challenges, the healthcare challenge, or physical challenges, mental challenges, also cognitive challenges in some countries, end of life planning is part of that. Yeah. But it's something that I think we should have mentioned that to be able to think about that as well when we get older. Yeah, I see Edwin is raising his hand.
Yes, thank you very much, Maite. Listen, I would like to add something. What you have been addressing is very important, and obviously I think that's the central concern of people that are aging. It's mostly health problems, medication, and all. But what I really feel that is important to highlight is that there are many needs that we sometimes don't realize, and it's difficult to find a solution. I remember that in Cotacachi, a few years ago, a group of expats mostly created a page which was called the Health Chapters. I found that to be very interesting because it was a way in which expats formed a group that would in some way support each other in terms of any need, emergency, and so forth. And I think those type of initiatives are great. And perhaps we can find ways to replicate that, to improve that, and to make a network where people can help each other. But interestingly, I remember that health chapters identified a list of critical aspects of aging and living alone. I think that combination is very, very dangerous because some people do not want to accept that as we age, we probably need some support. People prefer to live alone and live in their homes. But the truth is that there are main risks of living alone. And you mentioned several of them, Maite, and I would like just to indicate briefly these risks and how living in community, living, for example, in an assisted living community, they can be resolved. One of them, and you mentioned this quite well, social isolation, which leads to depression and leads to many very complex problems because of living alone. But if you live in a community, clearly you will be able to interact with other people. And there are many studies in Europe, in North America, where it's already been established that living in community improves your health and prolongs it in a healthier sense. Other difficulties, for example, daily tasks. As we grow older, things that now seem to be easy to do, they aren't. It requires more effort, it entails some risks. And again, living in a community, that is something you wouldn't have to worry about. How about housekeeping, maintenance, worrying about getting a plumber, getting an electrician, someone to come and fix your home? That's not an easy task, especially as you grow older. Things like laundry and so forth. Risks of falls. This is perhaps the largest one. And it has to do with proper designs of the buildings, accessibility. One of the major problems of older adults are the falls. And once they fall, clearly their health deteriorates and things go for worse. So I think that's something that we have to think about. And if you can resolve it at home, great. But otherwise, the community will probably have that already in mind. Malnutrition. Again, that's a major problem for health. And that comes from the fact that cooking or preparing meals for a person that is alone isn't a very nice task. Many people prefer not to cook, or they'll eat anything which they think is nutritious enough, but normally it isn't. And so, without realizing, people might be suffering malnutrition, and that is something that a community could probably help you resolve, because you would have someone monitoring, preparing food, and taking care of nutrition. Administering medication. That, for example, if it's not done by a doctor or by a nurse, there are times when you cannot do it yourself, or you might overdose. So that kind of thing is something you need to worry about, and living alone is a bit risky. As you were mentioning, financial planning, I think, is very important. And in terms of financial planning, one of the most difficult things is when people age and don't have security of how long their money will last. Their investments will be able to provide them with security. But if they can manage to have a package and a fixed cost that will resolve everything, that will probably make life easier in terms of planning and making your money go a little bit further. Supporting emergencies. A person that has a problem at home, alone, at night, who can help that person? I think those are things we need to worry about. And other small things. Doctors are very important. And Ana, Cecilia, and Maite are very important helping people have better lives. But you need to make appointments, you need to go there, and sometimes that, for a person that lives alone, that is aging, becomes a bit of a problem. So I think these risks, these problems, these needs, together with all the health issues that have been mentioned, clearly can be resolved if you belong to a community, if you belong to a greater group that takes care of you and resolve all these things, including funeral planning. That is something that we need to think about, all of us. We never know when our time comes. But if you have someone that has already planned, has everything in place to make things right when needed, that's certainly going to be a better quality lifestyle. Thank you, Maite, for that moment.
Thank you, Edwin. I think they're very good points you made, because facing all these challenges, all these health challenges, mental challenges, financial challenges, causes a lot of stress to one. Yeah. And that stress is a vicious circle, because having stress then again declines your physical health, your mental health, your cognitive health. And it is a fact that most elderly people are lonely. Yeah, I think it's just a minority that really is out there doing things, has their own community where they're participating. But in my professional opinion, most people are lonely, and having a community where they can be part of a community, have a purpose that can help them feel important again, not feel lonely again. And when mental health is better, physical health will be better. Mental and physical health are all connected. So we have to not work as a doctor. We don't always work on just physical health, getting that blood pressure under control, making sure the glucose levels are normal. No, we want to make that patient or that patient happy. We want to see what is the best way. How can we help our patient be happy, be okay, embrace this part of life with all the challenges it comes. So the mental health for me is also a very important part, and community can play a very important role in that. Coming from Belgium, we have lots of community there. We have community houses, we have assisted living. There are places where you can have, like, we call it service flats, yeah, where people are still on their own. They're part of a community, but they have a little kitchen. They can use the restaurant service, but they can cook for themselves too. There is nursing staff available, but they might not need it. They can still go out anywhere they want and come back, and they have a place where it's safe that they can come back, and any services can be offered when they're ready for it. And it's like you age there according to your, or you get the need, you get the service you need while you get older and have more needs to be filled in. Yeah. And then of course there's even nursing homes that are specifically designed for people with dementia, because that is also a very important disorder that causes a lot of stress, not only on the patient himself, who is not always not aware of what's happening, and strange things are happening to them and they can't explain why it causes stress, but then there's the whole family around them that where the burden on the family lays heavily. And to help them, it's good that there is these facilities that take a part of that burden, and where you can visit people anytime you want. So that would be nice if we could create something here too, something that people have already designed over years, and seeing what the needs are for all these different I'm looking for the right word in English, but all these different types, variations of patients or people. Yeah, of course, I speak patients because it's a custom, but in a way, not everybody is a patient. Being old doesn't mean you're a patient. You're still a person, yeah? And you're not, oh, being old is not a disease, yeah? Aging is not a disease. And some people see it that way, but in a way, it is actually, it can be something beautiful, like a birth. Well, aging can be beautiful too if you let it, yeah, if you embrace it. And longevity is what everybody, or longevity is what everybody should want to pursue, yeah, aging gracefully and happily, with all the challenge it has,
And
yeah,
without loneliness.
yeah, and loneliness. For me, loneliness is a big
Yeah.
part of it. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Maite. Thank you very much. Ana Cecilia, I think Joanne was telling us our time's
Yeah.
pretty much
Well,
done.
we're getting down on time. However, I do have a couple questions that are starting to come through. If anyone does have a question, please go to the chat, select my name, and put your question into that box, and we'll get to you, okay? One in particular involves an aspect of Lomas, so we'll address that later, Edwin. The other one is they want to know if they get a link to the recording of this webinar.
Yes, we are recording this and we will make it available, certainly.
Okay. At the end of this particular presentation, there will be a brief little questionnaire which will help us a lot in order to do our next one. So please remember to fill it in. The other question we'll come back to, but if anyone does have something, please put it in the chat. So, Edwin, you're now going to talk about financial stability and predictability.
Yes, thank you, Joanne. Let me get this up just fine. I wanted to briefly speak about the question, is it cost effective to live at home? We know that one of the main concerns everyone has is financial limitations. I know it's very complicated. We may need the service, but of course, costs are relatively high. If we consider, for example, assisted living in Europe, in the US, we're speaking of payments of $4,500, $5,000 a month, if not more. And consequently, it has become very difficult for many people to access those services. The same may become true in Ecuador because, of course, it does entail investment, it does entail staff, it does entail a lot of services, that clearly have a cost. However, Ecuador, as compared to other countries abroad, has a relatively good cost. Our costs are lower. We have a lot of professionals, nurses, trained nurses, doctors, many other professionals that are actually very willing to work in facilities. There are many professionals available, in other words, and that certainly helps first find staff, and second, try and find appropriate services where everyone wins and where costs are reasonable. Many people think that living at home is the cheapest option, and I think it's important to consider and see if this is true. For that purpose, we carried out a study regarding what it costs to live alone at home. These costs here that we see on the screen are costs of living in Quito, clearly. And this is the average cost. There will be families that probably spend much less and others that spend much more. But an average cost for one person to live in Quito, if you consider rent, food, utilities, transport, personal care products, and so forth, it has been established by government and NGOs that work with this, that the average cost in Quito per month is $1,168. That means that an older person living on his or her own in a reasonable apartment in Quito would have an expense of nearly $1,200 a month without any extra services, meaning housekeeping, without having someone to prepare your food, without laundry, and so forth. If you consider those limited services, because it would be only on a part-time basis, that may represent another $400 a month, meaning that a person that lives alone in Quito probably spends around $1,600 a month. Now, if that older person needs special assistance, such as a nurse, with 2 hours a day, the average cost of that is $400 a month. That's for home care service. And that does not include other things such as a social club and so forth. A person living alone in Quito is probably spending something like $1,968 a month. We did the same exercise for Cuenca, and it's basically $200 less, speaking of $1,768. Let's compare that versus, in this specific case, Club Lomas, which is offering services all included for $1,680. I think this emphasizes the fact that living in community can have more services, more security, and we can optimize costs. Here we're speaking of a high-end facility where you would have all included: residential unit, maintenance, security, full nutritional plan, housekeeping, keeping, laundry, security, and so forth, plus 24-hour nurse station, medicine administration, social club and activities. That's roughly $300 less than living alone. So perhaps it's good to analyze the situation and see if something like this could be more cost effective. There are other facilities, especially in Quito and Guayaquil. They're smaller facilities, more traditional. Some of these services may be included, not all, and prices there may range from $2,000 to $2,400 a month. We're speaking of the higher end facilities. Obviously, there are others which are, smaller economical places or charity, but they still have a cost. And I think it's interesting to know that there may be options, and it's good to learn what you may find. I would like to also briefly mention what Club Lomas is about. I think it's important that we must say this is a private initiative to start working, modernizing the senior adult industry. Club Lomas is a pilot project in the city of Cotacachi, and it wants to follow all international standards. It's a purpose-built facility with gardens, with spaces, mobility, access, and in a beautiful town like Cotacachi where many expats already live. I think it's important to say that our interest is, of course, developing this pilot project so that it can be replicated in the future with other parties. Say in Cuenca, where we have discussed that there's a great need for this, Quito, Guayaquil, Manta, hopefully other cities. We also understand that there are many different socioeconomic segments of the population. This level of service may not be accessible to all, but we can certainly work on developing other levels of services where we meet the needs, where people can live properly, can enjoy their life, and as someone was saying before, have longevity with wellness and a nice lifestyle. I think this brings the topic to the table. We wish to meet with government officials. We believe government must enact policies, regulations, and things that allow us to seriously develop something that is seriously needed by Ecuadorians and those that live here in Ecuador as well. So with that, I would like to thank everyone on my behalf and of Club Lomas for this time that you have given us. And back to you, Joanne. Thank you. I'm sorry, your mic?
Yes, okay. Just had a question here, a little bit more about Club Lomas. Somebody wanted to know how many beds there were. Edwin, could you just give them an overlay of what your plan is with the 4 different units that you're building? I think it's important for people to understand that it's not just going to be for assisted care, that, you know, there are thoughts in different groups about continuing on with other type of projects.
Yes, thank you, Joanne. I would like to say basically, Club Lomas is an enterprise that is working on developing the first pilot project, which is quite a substantial investment. We're speaking of 2 hectares of land, and the first main building that has been built has capacity for 70 persons in individual bedrooms or suites. 50% of all the structure is basically, I'm sorry, I want to share this. 50% of our structure is common areas. So there are many places for people to go to. There's a gym, there are pool, an indoor pool, sauna, Turkish bath, and all, a clubhouse. And that's the interesting novelty here, that Club Lomas is not only for residents. We will also accept external members from the local communities that want to be members of this small country club for older adults, which allows us to have more people interacting. We become part of the greater community. And of course, the intention is to serve several levels of care. Clearly, this can be usable by independent persons, autonomous, those that don't have needs, but that want to live a comfortable life, not worry about maintenance, property taxes, or anything of the sort, and have everything at hand. Then we do want to serve, and serve now, assisted living for those persons that require additional care, help with daily activities, and so forth. A third level, which we're working on now, is actually more on the medical side, speaking of major chronic diseases or health problems, mental and physical. And we will be developing 2 other buildings similar to this on the same site, where we also hope to have a medical center with doctors from Ibarra, from Quito, and we're also linking with our colleagues and friends in Cuenca, as we might partner to support other initiatives in that region as well. So basically, Club Lomas, we believe, is the leader in this industry for now, and we want to support others that are willing to be partners and form alliances. So we raise awareness in the country and make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Edwin. And if you have any questions, the chat is still open. You can send them that way. Also, that little survey, we'd really appreciate hearing from you on that. Thank you so much, Edwin, Mighty, and Cecilia. It was very informative, all the information, and I look forward to us doing it again.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
It's a pleasure being here, and I think age is not just a number, it's an attitude. And I think it's important to have that in mind. And with that, I just want to close. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
A survey then.
Okay.
Thank
Good night, everyone.
you. Please hang on. We'll give you the survey in a second. It'll be less than a minute.